Thank you for being here. So today's topic is stop wasting money, make it easier for shoppers to find and buy your brand. And the focus here is going to be on how do you identify that ideal customer that you want to sell your product to. And the reason that matters is because the more targeted your communication is, the more targeted your strategies are, the better the result. And so Jessica's here with Social Nature, and she's got a great presentation she's going to share with you. The question that I want to ask every brand is, are you fishing in the right pond? Now, that seems like a no-brainer. But the challenge is that the way we commoditize things, the way that you're taught to think about how you go to business, your go-to-business strategy, it's a one-size-fits-all strategy for everyone. So, for example, if you're a natural organic brand, gluten-free, whatever, it's very clean label, et cetera, and you're trying to sell it in a retail that doesn't cater to that kind of customer, well, you're probably going to get discontinued. You're not going to get the results from your promotions, et cetera. So instead of throwing good money after bad, how do we help you? And that's what this is all about today. How do we help you identify exactly where you need to be to sell your products to the right customer? Most brands target the wrong consumer. Like I said, it's the one-size-fits-all strategy. The reality is that Jessica, being female, is not like all other females who buy products. I'm not like all other males that buy products. The point is, we're all unique in our own way, and that's what we need to be able to focus on. So when brands do that, they're effectively using the wrong bait to keep with the fishing theme. So when I say you're using the wrong bait, throwing promotions at something without a target or specific objective is just a waste of money. And so a lot of brands, the other issue is that they lack creativity. They use the rinse and repeat strategy. And what I mean by that is that most brands, and especially the big brands, this is their Achilles heel, they simply look at what they did last year and they repeat it and they try to do it again, thinking or hoping for better results. What's the definition of insanity? So we want to really customize the way that we communicate with the brands that we're working with. 80% of the brands, natural brands, fail within the first year and even more over time. So let's fix that. And the way we're going to fix that is by knowing who your ideal customer is. I put together the free turnkey sales source strategies course to help you identify who that customer is. And the idea behind that is if I tell you a story and you tell someone else and they tell someone else and so on, then how does that story resonate with all your shoppers? Well, you need to know who that customer is that gets it, that understands who that is. And that's why I've invited Jessica on today, because they've got an innovative strategy to help you identify who that customer is. So she's going to be sharing in a minute. So personalization is the future. The reality is that your shoppers want to feel your love. They want to know that they matter and that they're important to you. They want to know that you're talking specifically to them. You're addressing their need. The best compliment that you can get from any one of your customers is, you created a product as though you were in my head. You came up with something that I was looking for and I didn't know that I needed, but you did it anyhow. So it's that kind of relationship you want to have with your customer. You want to develop a relationship with your customer that is one-on-one, same as you'd have like a good friend. If you could talk to your customers the way you talk to a close friend, that's how you convert an occasional customer into a loyal evangelist. That's how you maximize each and every opportunity that you have to get in front of a customer. And this begins with knowing who your customer is, and it begins by also communicating that in the value message that you offer to the retailer, et cetera. So that's why this is important. So imagine converting occasional customers into loyal evangelists. Imagine how much more effective your trade marketing would be, how much more effective your branding would be, how much more effective your distribution strategy would be. Also imagine the impact on your sales. If you were able to go after the exact customer that knows and likes your product, sales would be easy. They'd be a piece of cake. Instead of the strategies that you're taught to use today, where you just kind of throw stuff at the wall and hope to see what sticks. The point is, this is what big brands do. They just throw money after promotions. They're so focused on the strategy today is trying to get you to buy the stuff on the store shelf as opposed to asking you what you want to buy. And that's why we want to change that conversation. And again, Imagine the impact on your ROI. Imagine being able to focus your trade marketing on the customer that could potentially buy your product. So there's a better way, and that begins with a new day. And that's what we're talking about today. The strategies that we're going to be sharing with you, not only in this webinar, but other webinars on the podcast, etc. So we want to leverage the strategies that others overlook. Again, it's the cookie cutter strategies that every brand adopts because they're easy. Trade marketing represents about 25% of your gross sales. Yet 70% of those dollars are wasted. Imagine if you could get some of that money back to help maximize your sales, to help maximize the amount of money, the amount of opportunity that you have to get in front of more customers. And that all begins with knowing your customer and then maximizing your relationship. And of course, to be able to do that, you've got to be able to know exactly who you're talking to, and you've got to understand what their wants and their needs are. And again, going back to the trade marketing, this is critically important. Trade marketing is everything it takes to get your product in the hands of a shopper. And if you can leverage what Jessica's going to share in a minute to help drive customers to your store, to your brand, etc., that's going to give you a significant and sustainable competitive advantage. With that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Jessica's going to share, and she's got a lot of great insights for you.
Happy Friday, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Dan, for inviting me to come on to the webinar. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Social Nature, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the disruption that's been happening in traditional shopper and consumer marketing in the space right now around COVID and also around some larger consumer trends. And then I'm going to give you an example of how we're working to achieve some of the goals that Dan had spoken about in terms of making sure that we're really targeting the right people and starting to build relationships with them and understanding the why behind the purchase and how we can continue to build more impactful relationships and better results in our marketing. So to give you a bit of background, Social Nature is a discovery platform for natural product consumers to be able to find new products that align with their health and lifestyle goals. And brands leverage our platform as a go-to-market solution to drive retail impact and identify ways to convert new customers through customer feedback and customer insights. And so over the last 5 years, the company has worked with over 500 natural brands in US and Canada to drive consumer demand and retail impact. And our ultimate goal is to help brands grow across the product life cycle. And so our interest is to really start to work with companies. And we work with a lot of emerging brands. We work with a lot of high growth brands and some household names on getting products on shelf, moving them off shelves, and then starting to validate across the life cycle. And I think this is really important concept is that once you get on the shelf, we want to stay on the shelf. And I might be saying the obvious here. What's rapidly changing is that because there is so much innovation in the space, because there is so much interest in regional trends and buyers starting to pick up more local innovative brands and things like that, it's really important to be able to start to understand and validate your product across that life cycle so that we can continue to be relevant, that we can continue to understand the consumer mindset and what we're being compared to so that we can continue to drive the innovation cycle. And so we do this through some of our models, and it's all about the customer voice, like people-powered marketing and people sharing what they want, and then us helping brands to build what consumers want. And so before I talk about some of the strategies for more personalization and targeted marketing, I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the trends that all of us are experiencing right now in terms of disruptions in traditional marketing. And so what we've heard from our customers and what I'm sure a lot of you have faced and we've seen in the news as well is that the majority of in-store demos have been canceled in the US and Canada and will be for the likely future, or they're changing form. We've got people doing videos and then picking up, a packaged good. And so the nature of sampling, the nature of education in the in-store shopping environment is basically almost completely gone or going to be drastically different. The other thing that we're dealing with at the same time is mass consumer sampling events are no longer happening either. And we know that the nature of product trial, particularly in natural products, is an absolute driver of sales and customer engagement and ultimately purchase. And so with these things canceled, a lot of our customers and brands are saying, well, now what? Like, how am I going to get people to try my products? I know they're great. Once they try them, they buy them, but I don't know what to do. Like, what am I going to do? And so some of the other things that we've seen is that a lot of experiential marketing companies and teams are also not able to do the activations that they had planned. And experiential marketing can be a very effective strategy when you add elements of education or entertainment to it. And then we've got fragmentation and channel marketing happening at the same time. So retailers have their own advertising platforms. There's more innovation happening in retail marketing. And then there's just so many more things to manage. So it's difficult to be really efficient. You have to start to learn how to market within these channels, and then to evaluate effectiveness and ROI is becoming even more complicated for people. So there's a lot of change happening, and even things like influencer marketing. I ran a influencer marketing program when I was at Vega in the US and Canada, and was very fortunate to have over 1,500 influencers talk about our products every quarter and drive several thousands of people to our e-commerce store. And what we've seen over the past few years is even that is getting more ineffective because it's a pay-to-play model now. And so influencers have to say they're being paid to talk about your products. And so the authenticity of that is now no longer as effective as it was a few years ago when people were doing this just because they believed in brands, and it's tough to scale. So what the question that we're trying to answer in our business and with a lot of the clients, the hundreds of brands that we talk to, is like, how do I get my consumers to try my products in this current environment? Like, how do I do that? And how can I do that at scale while supporting my retailers at the same time? Like, is there a way to do this better? Is there a way to do this more effectively? And so that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today. And before we do that, I do want to share some research that we've done around the impact of COVID on companies' business strategies as well as consumer mindset, just to layer in a little bit more context as to why these things are important and how we can take advantage of some of the changes that are happening and turn them into a positive. So what we've seen from 200 leaders that we've spoken to is that biggest impact on business up until now with the COVID has been supply chain, financing and cash flow has been difficult for many small companies. Retaining employees and keeping them safe has been a challenge, particularly for people that manufacture their own products, and then changes in consumer behavior and just wanting to understand, like, what are people going to be doing? What's going to drive sales? Are they going to trade down? Are they going to buy new products? Like, how do I actually get people to discover my products has been a big question. And then, of course, changes in retail. How can I get, how do I pitch a buyer now? Can I get their attention? What do I need to get in front of them and actually get listed? And what kind of data do I need to make sure that I stay on those shelves? And how do I drive velocity? So lots of questions are being asked right now, particularly because a lot of the traditional tools that Dan had talked about are not available to the extent that they used to be. And so despite all this volatility, the good news is that when we spoke with those 200 plus companies, the majority of them do believe that sales are going to continue to grow in the natural brand channel, and they're projecting that over the next 6 months. The US 74% have said that they believe sales will increase, and that's the result that we've heard from our customers. And then the other thing is that when it comes to competitive strategy, more than 50% of people have said they're going to go hard. They're going to keep their foot on the gas, and they're going to keep building market share. Even in an environment of uncertainty, people are going ahead full force. And they're also investing another 24%. So these are single choice questions here, which makes this even more interesting, are going to focus on innovation. And so why does that matter? Well, it matters because we know that even though the environment is a little unpredictable, we don't have the tools we used to have, people are still going forward, and they're still going to put their foot on the gas, and they're looking for new ways to do marketing. And those that are being disruptive, not to overuse that word, but those that are willing to try new things are the ones that are going to win. So the other thing that I just wanted to highlight before we talk about specific strategies around customer engagement and personalization, is that the channel focus is starting to shift as well. So a lot of brands are continuing to focus on brick and mortar, which we would expect. That's still the largest volume of sales in natural CPG. And 29% are starting to invest and build out e-commerce on their own sites. And this is almost doubled since we talked to brands about this a year ago. And when Dan was talking earlier about, excuse me, the importance of like building those direct relationships, being efficient with marketing, turning people into evangelists, all these types of things. One of the best ways that you can do that as a brand is start building your own e-store. Even if it's not a huge percentage of your revenue, it's a wonderful way for you to start to learn, test, and validate quickly new product concepts, get people to give you their feedback directly, and start to build a small base or a tribe. I saw that when I was at Vega, just around the time where they were on that high growth curve and sold to White Wave for $500 million, is that we were really building direct relationships with consumers. And we found that a lot of our sales were coming through consumer advocacy. So that's a great strategy. The other fun piece about e-commerce is there's lots of opportunity for personalization. Why? Because you're able to start to ask more questions, and you can tag your products in ways that align with people's specific goals. So we're going to talk a bit more about that in this presentation. And I encourage you to look into doing that if you haven't already, to see how you can start to build even more direct channels for feedback. The other thing that's important to consider here, just within to build a little bit of context here, is that we also wanted to better understand what do consumers think about COVID specifically? Like where are they at in their mindset? And what we found is that, and this is from a survey size of 3,200 people collected in the last week. I'll be doing a major webinar and release of this data in September. Is that 77% of US and Canadian people think that there's going to be a second wave of COVID in the next 6 months, and that they think that it's going to be of greater magnitude. So we're going to see more shift potentially happening in buying patterns, and we're going to see more impact in channels, which means we're going to need to find ways to be even more effective with our marketing. So what we've seen to date is that before COVID, the majority of shoppers were going into grocery stores 2.5 times per week. They've now dropped that down to 1.3 times on average, so 48% less visits into brick and mortar, which means that we have to be even more aggressive in making sure that we're getting people to discover us on the shelf, because the opportunity for that is just not as big in terms of frequency. But the good news is that even though people aren't going to stores as often, the spending on groceries has increased. So that's really, kind of logical in a way, right? People are doing bigger shops. And it also means that there's an opportunity for you to be in that basket. And so we've seen that in the US, 55% of US consumers are spending more on average in their shopping trips, and 49% of Canadians. So there's lots of opportunity to continue to thrive in that brick and mortar channel. And at the same time, we're also going to see massive growth happening online. So if you guys can kind of follow along here, before COVID, this is what we saw in US and Canada. US a little bit more active than Canadians online. I think that the US is more sophisticated in online grocery delivery than Canada is at this point, and I'm Canadian, so I can say that. But it's that before COVID, it was like maybe 1 time a month. And then now it's like 2.3. And by wave 2, people are predicting that they're going to just keep shopping more and more online. So when I talked to you a few minutes ago about, okay, what if I test my own e-store? That could be a great opportunity. And the other thing is to think about, if you're not on Amazon or Walmart.com yet, you might want to see how you can get on there and figure that out, because those are right now, currently in the United States, the top 2 e-commerce channels for natural products across every single category. So considering those, if they're not as part of your channel strategy, over time is going to be a good opportunity. And focus on them. You don't need to be on every single e-store. It can be difficult to manage. Start to focus on where you have the time to really focus on being effective. The other thing that I want to highlight before we get into the tools and strategies around personalization, hyper-targeting, and building those direct relationships is that this is really exciting, is that people more than ever are taking a more proactive approach to their health management compared to a year ago. So for all of us that are in the natural space, like people are health forward right now. They have had time to reflect because of COVID. They may have dealt with COVID personally or had a family member. I know my mom has dealt with it. She's 74. She's over it, thankfully. But it makes you step back and reflect on what can I do to make sure that I'm staying healthy while we all go through these times. And so 82% of Americans are taking more action than before, and 79% of Canadians, which means this is a great opportunity for us to connect with that whole person and sort of transcend from feature benefit selling into like holistic marketing and building emotional connections. Why? Because people are in a state of change. And so when we're in a state of change, we're more likely to try new things. And we've seen that 73% of people in US, 70% in Canada are buying new products. And I'm going to be talking about new product purchase trends, a lot more detail in the September data. And what I want to highlight, just 2 key points here that we're so excited to see is that the main reason why people were buying new products was because they actually want to try something new, period. They want novelty. So it wasn't because I can't afford what I currently buy, I'm trading down. It actually, those were the lower reasons. It's because they want something new. And the second biggest reason was because I have a new health goal or a new health routine, and this product's going to help me with that. So this is exciting because we are not in a place of lack. We're in a place of abundance where people want to try these things. So this is your opportunity as a brand to take that next step and start to really understand what is the why behind your products. Like what problem are you actually solving for these people? And then start to tell that story and get them to tell your story in a really big way. And what's exciting is that consumers want to share feedback directly. So 91%, 93% in the US said, I want to give my ideas to you. Like, I would love to talk to you about what I'd love to see in that ready prepared meal, or in that supplement, or in that hair skincare, or whatever it is, right? So when Dan was talking earlier at the outset of this about like evangelists, right? And how we can build these relationships, it's simple. We just can build a bit of community and just start talking to people directly. And it's amazing how, and I'm sure many of you have experienced this too through your customer service team, or if you're a founder, you know, you've been at a farmer's market, or you've been out on, you know, an event, just hearing your customers or consumers talk. Like, it really can be an inspiring way to drive innovation and to continue to build relationships. So that's, I love that point, and I just can't express enough how big of an opportunity that is. So some of the things that we're going to kind of talk about now are, okay, so number one, we've seen that people are investing in change. They are more health forward than ever before. So how can I understand what their goals are, and then align my products and even my content? Could be recipes, could be lifestyle tips around how they can achieve these goals. The second is, as Dan talked about, personalization. So people, you know, gone are the old days of like push marketing and being talked at. Now it's about being talked with. And people are busy and they just don't have time to look at. There's so many solutions now that people are overwhelmed too, right? We're all overwhelmed with information. So if I can personalize my marketing and show you products that I know you would care about because you already told me what you care about, then it's going to be more likely that you're going to want to listen to me, or we're going to do something together, right? So the final thing is like involving them in the product roadmap. And so there's a couple ways that we do this at Social Nature that you can learn about, and you can consider how you can apply them in your own business. It's one of them is through our digital demo program. So we talked about here, you know, at the beginning of this, how unfortunately a lot of the traditional tools are just not happening, or going to be changing in a way that's a little unpredictable. Like the in-store demos are canceled, mass consumer sampling events are not happening. So the big problem is, well, how do I get my product in people's hands? Like for me, that was my growth strategy. So what we can do is, first of all, we drive consumers to try products at retail. That's what our specialty is, and it has been for the last 5 years. And we first start with understanding and helping you to understand who is the target consumer. So we're able to segment and a variety of different data points that we'll talk about. And then we just want to get their products in the hands at that key account or those key retailers, and then help you to get feedback. And so what's interesting about this is not just one of those typical sampling programs. I used to have a $1 million sampling budget at one of the companies that I worked for. And I did every kind of sampling you can imagine, from like Johnny's Running Club to like Lululemon half marathons to sponsoring yoga events to personal trainer. Like, I've done it all. And what I found was it was really hard to measure like what was the actual impact of all this activity. And it's good to get your name out there, but at the end of the day, we didn't know if people were even taking the stuff that we sent out in those race bags or whatever, or if anybody cared about the product after they had the smoothie after their run, right? So the key point of difference about this is that, and this is why I joined this company, is that people are opting in. So we're not pushing anything at anybody. People are putting up their hand and they're saying, I want to learn about your brand and you, and I want to try your product. And then we guide them together, our brand, your brand and us on our platform. We'll guide them through the entire consumer journey, from the awareness stage to the consideration stage, like, would I buy this? Yes or no? Why or why not? All the way through to purchase and ultimately advocacy. And how do we do this? Well, the way we do it is by capturing the consumer voice across that journey. So the three stages, in most marketing, there's still like a few in between, but the main buckets, right, are brand awareness. So, that's, people need to even know about me to even find my product or try it, right? To consideration. So would I buy this? Yes or no? How do I drive a sale? And that can often be through, TPRs or coupons and stuff like that, through to advocacy. And so what I've seen in my career, and I don't know if I mentioned, I think I've been doing this for about 15 years, doing marketing for natural brands in the US and Canada, and work with small companies through to 100 million plus companies. What often can happen is we have, traditional marketing, and we decide that, I need to have my awareness bucket. So I'm going to spend a bunch of money on brand awareness, and somebody's going to do that. And then I have my consideration bucket, and this happens at major CPG companies all the time. I'm going to do, stuff to drive sales in the channel. And then I'm going to have another team that's going to do, influencer marketing, community events, and like some PR, whatever, maybe some email marketing with my community to try and turn people into advocates. And all three of these things are getting spread out with different teams, with different budgets. And you don't really know what's working. Like, you're not seeing the big picture of like, okay, great, I think I'm getting a bump, but like, I don't actually know why, because I never measured the why. I never asked the consumer the why. And so the big thing that we're trying to do here at Social Nature, and if you were to work with us, we can talk about this in more detail. And if not, you can consider this in your own business, is let's be more efficient. So how can we start to understand that person's story or their experience from learning about you to trying you to buying you? And so that's what we're all about here, is like trying to help real people solve real problems and connect with the brands that resonate with them the most. And so this is just an example of one of the Social Nature community members. Her name's Kathy, and she's a medical student, and she became lactose intolerant, and she was trying to find, dairy alternatives and things like that. And she came to Social Nature's platform because she doesn't have a ton of time to browse in stores and learn about new things. And so she leverages Social Nature as a place to find new products. And we know that she has these dietary preferences because she's told us that. And so we only invite her to try things that she can actually eat, right? Or she can actually drink or actually buy. And so this is kind of like the nature of what Dan was talking about. Well, let's understand the real person and their story. We can do that through data and through effective content marketing. And we do that through hyper-targeting. So whenever a new user signs up for the Social Nature platform, they share like 50 different things about themselves with us. And so we understand like where they live, what their age is, their household composition, do they have kids, how old are their kids, what's their dietary preferences, do they like to do, what's their activities, they like yoga, hiking, cooking at home, like what kind of things, what are their interests, right? And then the other thing is what we start to understand and specifically like nuanced levels of category usage. So if you do want, let's say you're like a cold brew coffee, for example, and you're new and you want to see, you know, what cold brew coffee drinkers think about your product, we can target those people and literally get them to compare your product to your competitors and help you figure out like where you stand. We can do pricing testing, like what are people willing to pay for this? Like, or if you were to increase it, you know, X%, let's say you're having margin pressures and you're trying to figure out, okay, where can I actually, you know, make money, or where can I drop, whatever, that kind of thing. We can all do that kind of testing. And ultimately what we're trying to do here is start to see what is going to have the biggest impact on your purchase intent and your product ratings. So we capture reviews as well. And so what's fun about this is that not only are we going to make sure we're not wasting our money on people that aren't the right fit, but we can also split test. So sometimes it depends on the type of brand marketer you are. Some people are more data driven than others, and you don't have to be crazy. You know, you don't have to be nuts about this, but it can be really fun to set up even different cohorts. So let's pretend I'm brand new and I'm like, oh my God, everyone could love my product. Like millennials could have it, seniors could have it, moms could have it, athletes could have it. Like, where do I go? Like everyone can buy this. I only have so much money. So like, what am I going to do right now? Right? What am I going to do with my money, say the next 6 months? I can't spend it on everybody. So what we can do is we can set up a test, and we can literally have, you know, 3 to 5 different segments, try your products, and we'll just compare the data and we'll start to see where would you win the most. And then from there you can scale up. And so the idea here is that we're building brand awareness and we're able to help you convert new customers. And so one of the things that's super fun is if you said to us, like, look, I only want to go after net new people, maybe you're more established and you're only wanting new customers, or new consumers, excuse me, that have never heard of you, we can do that. And it's a lot of fun to be able to start to see over time how the data points of brand awareness can move, and we can understand what would be the why behind that conversion of that new customer. And so all of this starts with building up consumer demand in the first place. So we saw earlier that within that sort of funnel from awareness, consideration to advocacy, that the first step is, well, people need to know about it, right? So we work with you to build up brand awareness on the platform, and we're able to quickly see which of your products are trending and why. So for example, again, if you're a new company, let's say you've got a new line, you're just starting to get listed, you actually don't quite know yet what product you should spend the most money to push on. We can quickly find out in a matter of weeks, like, well, it looks like these flavors are more popular in these regions, or this particular SKU looks more popular than this one, and here's the reason why. And this is the reason why from a category user, for example. So there's a lot of fun things that we can do just through simple digital marketing and building awareness to help us figure out, before we activate and spend our money on the sampling or the direct experience, where we should even focus. So that's the first step. And then from there, we can activate demand and move units off the shelf super quick. So a lot of companies have come to us for a variety of reasons. We typically work with brands on an annual basis and set up like quarterly plans with them. And we've had lots of clients come to us and say, you know what, I am at risk of getting delisted right now. Like, I'm about to get kicked off this retailer's shelf. Can you please help me get people in there? I need them to try my product. I know my product's good, but nobody's picking it up off the shelf. I've got bad placement, or nobody understands what this thing is, or whatever it is. So we'll get people to go in there, people that have opted in who already want to try the product, right? They're not getting paid to do this. They're doing this because they want to do it, because they're interested in the product, and they'll go into your exact stores and they'll pick the product up off the shelf. So I think that what's interesting about this is that it's not just a sampling program where you might randomly pick up a sample. These people are literally going into the store and they're going exactly to the shelf and they're picking up the product and they're putting it in the basket and they're checking out. So when we think about, if any of you've studied behavioral research or behavioral change or anything like that, modeling and getting people to do the behavior we want them to do is one of the best ways to drive the behavioral change. So that's where we found that this tactic, and it's so simple yet hard to execute at scale, is really effective in driving like post-trial conversions. We see anywhere from 10, 20, 30% minimum conversion on secondary offers. And so brands are leveraging us to get units off the shelf. The other thing I would say also that's interesting about this compared to other couponing types of things is that we typically see like a 70% redemption. So there's a lot of confidence in ability to execute. And that relates back again, without being too repetitive here, to the fact that people are opting in. So the question to you is, when you're looking at your marketing, how can you get people to like opt in, like building a newsletter or building up cool content so people start to learn about you, and then they start to tell you, give you permission, if you will, almost to market to them. And so once people try the products, the next piece is we're going to move into consideration phase, and we're going to ask and wonder, okay, do you like the product? Are you going to buy it? If so, why, how often, and where? So we ask all those questions, and you get to have all the reviews from these products. We typically have 70% of people reviewing them. And it can be super effective. Again, when Dan was talking at the beginning of this about authentic connection, about personalization, about building relationships, about ideal customers, when we can listen to the customer language, like the way they talk about your product, it can be super inspiring to see, how they're framing it. And there's ways to analyze all of this data using different software and stuff like that to get key themes or keywords pulled out, which can be effective if you want to turn that into a digital or social strategy. And also it's an opportunity to see for improvement. So if somebody gave you a lower rating, like, well, what was it that they'd improve? And I remember one client, this was so interesting. They were launching a new ready-to-made noodle product, and people in our community were giving it not the best review. And we quickly found out, like literally within a week, that the reason is that they didn't have the right cooking instructions on packaging, and they thought that they weren't getting a good experience. So we let the client know that, and then after the client fixed the packaging, and then the sales actually went up and it became one of their top selling products. So getting that feedback quickly can be super helpful, not only in helping you sell more, but also helping you to mitigate risk, right? So we also get a lot of people sharing on social, and we can build out social campaigns and ultimately help you to understand what are the top purchase drivers and how can you optimize your value proposition. And so, the bottom line here is just asking people what they think, right? Like, which flavor would they like to see, or what was most interesting about the product? Was it your story? Was it your mission? Was it the sustainable packaging? Was it the ingredient profile? There's lots of things that we can ask so that we can find out what matters most, and then you can use that in your marketing and in personalization. We can also figure out what are people willing to pay more for or less, and that can be really useful, particularly now because there are pricing pressures out there. Before we move into questions, there's a couple more points here that I'll share with you. The other piece here is retailer-specific insights. So some of you might get POS data, which is awesome. It can be really helpful to see, what's going on in general, or to see in general, like with the Spins or Nielsen. I know that Dan used to work at Spins, who's winning in a category and things like that. And what's interesting about Social Nature's data is that we can be complementary to that, and in the sense that we can support you on the why. So like, why is this product up or down? Like, what is it about the product that people like or don't like? And how does that vary by retailer? Are there differences in Walmart shoppers versus Target shoppers? And in perception? And that can be really helpful, because when we were talking earlier, Dan was mentioning earlier as well, about how we want to be efficient with our trade spend, and one type of shopper might be different than another. There can be nuances sometimes, so it can be helpful to figure that out so that you're going to put your best foot forward. The other piece here is that you always like to help brands build advocacy by, we actually capture emails and we'll send that over to you, so you'll get email acquisition, and we can start to ask, like, okay, so you love this product, well, what would you like to see next? What flavor or what kind of product would you want to see next? And so it's all about that full cycle and that full kind of building that 360-degree relationship with people. So ultimately our goal here, and whether, if you wanted to learn more about social nature, my email will be on the next slide. The goal here is to be as integrated as we can and to be as efficient as we can so that we don't have to spend money on so many different activities and make it hard to measure what the actual impact is. Whereas we can spend our money on one solution that's super integrated and we can capture the data across the entire journey. And then we can leverage that data to start to power the entire business. So a lot of the customers that we work with will leverage the data from the sampling to have conversations with buyers to build social trust. We've had brands leverage our data in investor pitch decks to show product market fit, as well as with innovation teams and ideas for new things. And so we're all about like data that works for you and working with brands to continue to build direct relationships with consumers and ultimately help you sell more products and help you tell your story. So I'll kind of just pause here. This is a summary of what the program is. And so this recording will be shared on the, I think, Dan, on YouTube, right?
Right, exactly,
so if
yes.
you want to learn, if you want to learn more about it and some of the results and impact that we've been able to drive for customers, or if you just want to jam out on marketing strategy in general, I love to chat with companies about emerging high growth innovation. I love it. My email is at the bottom there, jessica@socialnature.com. Thanks, guys.
That was great. Thank you so much. Yay. Okay. That's really, really great. I appreciate your sharing it. Let me, if I may, let's back up a little bit. Let's put some of this into context.
Sure.
My background, I've worked with big CPG companies, Kimberly-Clark and Unilever. At the time, Unilever was the biggest CPG company in the planet. We did something like $65 billion in sales.
Wow.
That's a lot. The point I'm trying to drive home here is that when you're talking about big brands, they use focus groups and they use a lot of really complicated advanced strategies that are unbelievably expensive that no small brand could be able to touch, right? One. Two, they tend to commoditize the shopper. Again, all female, all male, whatever. And so the insights that you're getting are not really tailored to your specific customer. The customer that understands why pink Himalayan salt is better for you in terms of metabolizing in your body than iodized salt, that kind of a thing. And so what Jessica just shared with you is priceless, because getting those insights and getting those insights from customers that would actually buy your product are so valuable. So when you talk about a focus group, one of the things that I find is that a lot of times people tell the people that are doing the focus group what they think they want them to hear.
Mm.
And so several examples of what I've seen in my history is I've seen a lot of products fail, even though the focus group gave it its full blessing. And the reason they fail is because consumers are kind of fickle. They do what they want, when they want, how they want. And it doesn't take that into consideration. So when you have the ability to get insights, actual actionable insights from your ideal shopper, take advantage of it. That's what we're talking about here. This is how you develop that personal relationship. Second point, Jessica talked about innovation. Great information there. The big brands don't innovate. I did a project for one big brand a few years ago where they put a label on something, it was a diet drink. They put a different label on it, it was a energy drink. They put a different label on it, it was a snack or whatever. And so there were 5 different products, literally, but it was all just the same stuff in the bottle, right? In one bottle. But the point is, that's how they innovate. And customers want real innovation. They want what we have to offer, innovation based around what they want. So great example, Jessica, as far as that customer you shared, where if you have the opportunity to get real-time feedback, that's going to save you a ton. And if you can innovate before you put a product on a shelf, that's going to save you a ton as well. So let's say I want to put a product on a shelf. Well, let's say 4 months to get the packaging in, to get it put into a package, And then you've got to go get distribution, pay slotting and all that other stuff. And then you've got 6 months to prove that it'll survive on a shelf, and you're spending tons of money promoting it. Think about how much money you've spent, not knowing whether or not that product will be a hit. Meanwhile, if you've got that connected community, like we're talking about, you can reach out and ask them, hey, do you want banana? Do you want chocolate? What do you prefer? What do you prefer? What would you buy? And then based upon the feedback they give you, great point, Jessica. Thanks for sharing that. They want to be a part of this co-creation. And if they have the ability to help co-create your brand, then they're invested in it. And then they're going to share it with their friends. They're going to evangelize about your product. And by the way, you can't pay for that kind of advertisement. And then the other thing I wanted to touch base on, when you look at syndicated data, that's what happened last month, okay? And there are a lot of factors that you need to be thinking about or need to understand when you're trying to understand what that data is telling you. And that's a whole nother conversation. That's a focus of the podcast, the courses, everything else I do. So I don't want to get into the weeds. But the point is, that's historical data. And that data only represents a few stores or a few chains or a few retailers. And to get targeted information is so critically important, because that's what you're trying to do. Is you're trying to move the needle, not try to fish in a big pond with the wrong bait, back to what I said earlier. And then more importantly, syndicated data tells the story of what happened. Why it tells the story of what happened. It doesn't tell the story of why what happened. And that's what you ultimately want to do. So what I've been doing throughout my career, and the reason I understand this so well, is you take the syndicated data and then you sprinkle on the consumer insights. So, okay, here's what happened, but here's why that happened, and here's why that matters. So when you go to the retailer, instead of just handing a canned top line report, the same report everyone else uses, now you're giving them insights, actionable insights that they can use to gain more traffic in their store, gain a competitive advantage in their market, and gain a reasonable profit in the category. So why does this matter? Retailers are looking to big brands with deep pockets to give them that trade marketing spend that they are used to, that they haven't had over the last couple of months because of COVID. And smaller brands are getting pushed out. So just like Jessica said, smaller brands are being forced to get innovative, and they're going online. That's a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing, the reason it's a challenge, is because we don't want to lose the opportunity to be available, have your product available where your customer shops. So being able to leverage these strategies, these insights that Jessica shared, are critical to your very survival, because that's what's going to help you differentiate your brand, talk to your retail, to your consumers, et cetera, using their own voice. So they feel like they're talking to you as a friend, the personalization piece. And then more importantly, it's going to help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls that other brands fall into. To be honest with you, it doesn't take a lot of creativity to write checks on behalf of a brand. So we got a couple questions. And by the way, put your questions in the chat and I'll keep checking, or the Q&A. So Jessica, what is your advice on planning new product launches in today's environment? Good question.
Wow, yeah, such a good question. I think it really maps back to what we've, the central theme here of putting the customer first and involving them in the development of the new product concept in the first place, and being able to fail or learn quickly, fail early, learn quickly. So I think that one of the things that we see effective is to do smaller tests first. So get consumers involved early and giving you feedback so you could optimize before you even build the final version of the product. So doing concept testing can be really helpful. And we do that at Social Nature quite quickly. And then test on your own e-commerce even. So if you built out your own e-store, you can quickly validate what people are willing to pay or not pay, what kind of messaging is going to drive like conversions on your site. And that is a really quick way to launch a product and to see how it does. And then that data and that learning can be used to support an expansion strategy. The other thing that I would say knowing that the environment is continuing to move more online. So backing that, the idea of testing on e-commerce first is making sure that you have a review strategy in place as well. So consumers are searching for products online all the time now, and product reviews are one of the top drivers of interest and sales conversions. So it's important to have that strategy in place. And you can do that through having people try your products, sample them, and then write the review strategy. And those would be the main things. And I just can't express enough of getting consumers involved early in that new product launch. Social Nature does support new product launches in the sense that we can drive thousands of people into a new listing store to support that launch. And so that's another area that we often work in.
Great. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, that's a great answer. Let me throw in one more thing.
Sure.
I've been saying for years now, and I didn't know that we're going to have the pandemic, obviously, but what would happen if all the retail stores dried up? Where would you sell your product? Being able to leverage what Jessica just shared, and thank you for doing that, to be able to grow and scale your brand, to be able to identify where your consumer shops, to be able to tell the stories that you need to be sharing with the retailer, that's going to give you that point of differentiation. Remember, retailers want more traffic in their store. They want to remain relevant. If you can help a retailer remain relevant against their competition and against their online threats, that's the win for them. And so leveraging exactly what Jessica just said to take advantage of that, to have that committed community online that you can leverage anywhere else. So thank you for that. Another question we got in is what examples of marketing to consumers, so what are examples of marketing to consumers in a holistic way?
Now that's a great question as well. So let's define holistic. So when we're I guess like holistic way could be really understanding like the whole person, right? So we've talked about holistic marketing, and so understanding, you know, what the person's goals are, like what are their aspirations, what are their pain points in general, and how you can connect with the whole person. So thinking about people in terms of people, and then starting to understand, you know, how they perceive your brand, and then setting up your communications to align with their specific goals is a great way to market holistically. So it is important to have, you know, the ingredient attributes communicated, and then make it easy for people to search products based on what matters to them most. So that's something that can be really helpful. So if your product helps with like energy or sleep, then having the products tagged and having content that communicates that way could be really good. The other thing is to involve people in your community. So you can be setting up maybe Facebook groups and things like that. We've seen in the past that even people love doing challenges. So let's say people are wanting to get more into plant-based eating, doing plant-based eating challenges, and supporting them with education can be a way to connect with the whole person. And then, yes, they might buy your product. And then the other thing I think that's helpful is it kind of relates to the theme of personalization as well, is as you start to understand the whole person, like what their goals are overall, then you can start to cross-merchandise related products that meet those goals. And so you start to provide more value. The other thing that can be really fun is partnerships. So once we understand, you know, what your sort of goals are or your mindset and what you want, then why not bring in like another partner? So as an example, let's say I have a goal that I'm trying to reduce stress. That's a goal for 47% of Americans, and I'm selling stress reduction supplements. Then why not partner with an app, a meditation app, and give people, you know, a free month meditation or something, or bring in a yoga person and do, you know, a free yoga class for a month or whatever. So there's lots of different ways, I think, to be able to build up more of a holistic approach to marketing.
Love that. And let me go one step further. If you develop a strategy where you're co-promoting with someone, you can lower the expense of the promotion. You can get a higher lift from the promotion. And the best part is that you're introducing your product to their customers, and they're introducing your customers to your product. So you're expanding that pond that you're fishing in, as we started earlier. Guys, I know that we're coming up to the top of the hour. thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stay on, so you guys are welcome to, we've got a few more questions we'll get to. Do me a favor, share these with anyone you know, with everyone you know, want to know that wants to grow sustainable sales, and let us know specifically, what are the bottlenecks that you have? What are the things that we can help address or solve for you? And then we'll try to do our best to put them in the webinar series, et cetera. So again, thank you for being here. If you need to drop off, I completely understand. I will put the recording on YouTube after I get it all edited and stuff. So anyhow, next question, Jessica. How can brands do more to personalize marketing? Oh, I love this question. Go ahead.
This is a big one, and quite frankly, the answer is going to sound like the opposite of the objective, but it is an excellent way to do it. It's all about data, and so what I mean by that is the more we know about people through what they share with us is important, the more we can better provide them with things they care about. So what you saw with Social Nature is when anytime a user signs up to our platform, we collect up to 50 different attributes that they voluntarily tell us what their goals are, what their health and lifestyle is, their household, where their regions, where they shop, and that kind of thing. So the first step for you as a brand, if you're particularly with digital marketing, which is a great place to start for the best way to do personalization, really, is to, when people come onto your platform, if you can get them to sign up and provide them with an incentive, maybe it's an ebook or something like that, get them to tell you what their goals are. Number one, their lifestyle, their dietary preferences, all that kind of stuff, depending on your food product, your products. And then from there, you already can tag that user based on those things, right? So that's step one. The second step, and it certainly depends on how broad your SKUs are. Like, do you have 200 SKUs? Is it 3? Like, how many? Is to start to think about how you can tag those products in relation to the health goals or attributes that people say are important. So when I'm on your site, especially if you've got 100 different products, I just want to find the low sugar product or the gluten-free product, or I want the products that help me increase my energy, or I want the products that help lose weight, or whatever it is. If we can merchandise our products, and this is particularly important for e-commerce and retailers, actually, most retailers are trying to have better data so they can do more personalization. I know this because I used to work with a food data digitization company based in New York that was powering this type of data with major retailers in the US, is to figure out how you tag that, because the proper tagging, well, I mean that classification system, the architecture of how you merchandise the product on your e-commerce store, is where you start to learn. And if you want to start to then invest in things like machine learning or artificial intelligence, it's hard for a machine to learn if the products or the people aren't tagged properly in the first place. So it sounds complicated, but it's actually really quite simple. It's just about starting to learn through a conversation with customers about kind of how they think, and then setting up your architecture to do that. From there, it's very easy to go, okay, I know I've got a cohort, you're paleo people. I'm going to target them with paleo recipes or products that meet paleo. I've got another group of keto people over here. I can send them keto stuff, right? It's really simple. And then you start to build that one-on-one relationship.
Great answer. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go one step further. If you had an opportunity to talk to every customer that bought your product as they're reaching up to grab it off the shelf, and you ask them, why are you choosing our product? Why would you choose the other product if they don't choose your product? And you had that intimate conversation. What Jessica's talking about is knowing your customer at that intimate level. That is going to be a game changer for your brand, because at that point, now you're giving them what they want. Guys, selling isn't tough. It's just giving customers what they want, helping them solve their problem. And yet we put so many barriers to really making that work. And the other thing is the strategies we're using today don't do any good. They don't effectively help raise a needle. They just throw money away. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we have another question. If there's a second wave, I assume this means a coronavirus, then what is your advice for brands on marketing then?
Yeah, so I think like the main thing is that we've seen from our research with the 200 plus leaders that shared their current approach is that keep the foot on the gas. So even though there can be volatility in the retail channel, we do expect that consumers will be making potentially less trips to stores. They will be spending more on those trips. So there is an opportunity for you to continue to double down on brick and mortar and to invest in driving consumers to opt into the store. So have them know about your products before they go to the store. That's something that Social Nature does really, really well. And so you want to keep your foot on the gas. The other thing is that definitely shifting into online. So not forgetting about brick and mortar, but making sure you increase your focus in the online space, because there is a lot of opportunity for growth there. Across every single product category is growing online. There's a lot of opportunity there. And then the other thing is, if you are in an essential category, I would recommend that if you haven't already, I'm sure you probably are on top of this, do some demand forecasting and try to lock down multiple manufacturing partners so you don't have downtime. So that it can be an effective strategy to diversify the supply chain and make sure that you've got multiple partners to deal with increased demand. I know a lot of our customers that were essential products were just dealing with out of stock, just couldn't get product in stores fast enough. There could be an increase of pantry stocking happen again this fall. That is very possible. So getting your supply chain locked now, if you can, is good. And then the other thing I would say is that we've seen an increase of desire from consumers on comfort and convenience. So people are nesting more. There's more investment even in like things like home renovations and stuff like that. And so if you can align with more convenience products, whether that be like frozen prepared foods or like comfort food recipes or like just making it easier for people, that overall theme of comfort and convenience is a big one. And we're going to expect to see a lot more of that happening.
Fantastic. Thanks. And thanks for sharing. I'm going to go one step further again and keep throwing in my 2 cents. Hope that's okay.
I love it. Of course.
Well, the reason that I think this is so important, I mean, on top of everything you said, remember, it gets back to the personalization. And all I wanted to share here is that these insights that we're sharing with you, leverage this with the retailer to help them understand why you matter. Jessica mentioned that earlier. Why do you matter to the retailer? Don't let them charge you all those ridiculous fees to the degree that you can. Help them understand how you're doing more to drive profitable sales in their store. And that's at the heart of everything Jessica just said. Okay, another question. What are some tips for what are some tips for building community?
Yeah, I think like building community is all about authenticity and doing things that are fun and that add value for people. So if we want to build community, whether it be offline or online, the first step is typically like a shared interest, right? So understanding what your customers' key goals are or key interests are, and you can do that through some of the data profiling we've talked about. And then from there, you can start to build like a group around a shared idea. So I go back to the plant-based eating because I've worked in that space in plant-based food companies extensively. It can be really helpful to create like a community around that and then share like lifestyle tips or host like different challenges and things like that. And then through that is that people love to share their opinions. So like ask them, if you're going to build, a new product, like ask them, like, what would you like to see? And so that starts to build that emotional connection and making people feel special, like they're kind of part of your tribe or your inner circle. It's a really good way to keep people engaged. And also if you are going to build like some kind of digital community or something like that, having platforms where people can talk to each other. So not just like a one-way channel like you and them, but like how can they help and support each other? That's like really, really important in community building, just using common sense. That's why people come to a community, is to talk, to share, right? So if you're looking for different digital technologies and leveraging stuff where people can start to actually drive the conversation themselves, is great.
One of the things that I was thinking about when you said that is a lot of brands, a lot of people are trying to leverage influencer marketing. So if you get a big name celebrity to say, hey, this product's great, well, that worked in the past. The reality is, and this is the best part about what Jessica just shared, is that people want to buy from people that are like them. And if you can get someone from your community that looks like you, sounds like you, acts like you, etc., to recommend and evangelize your product, that's far more valuable. Oh, and by the way, you don't need to pay them unbelievable amounts of money. You might be able to
Yeah.
reward them with an extra whatever. But so leverage these strategies, because at the end of the day, this is how you grow and scale. This is how we help you get your products onto more store shelves and in the hands of more shoppers. And this does include online. If you're not using these strategies online, you're missing the boat. If you're not using these strategies anywhere, you're missing the boat. Remember, the goal here is to help you know, first of all, where your customer shops, and then make it easier for them, like Jessica said, to find and buy your products. So thank you. Any other questions you want to ask? I don't see any others coming in at the moment. I appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you again. Go to the events page of the website so you can see what's coming up next. Like I said, I've got a lot of great content coming up, and I'll be partnering a lot with Social Nature. This is why I love working with them, because their insights are invaluable. Like I said, it costs a ton of money to buy those kinds of insights, but they're not usually that useful because they're very commoditized. So leverage, reach out to Jessica, learn more about what they're doing. And if I can help in some way, let me know. Oh, and as far as the forecasting, you were talking about that course that I made available on a limited basis, limited time basis, that's going to help you understand why forecasting is important and accuracy matters. And if you can take these insights, this information, and bake that into your go-to-market strategy, your forecasting, your planning strategy, et cetera, that's going to help you scale and grow even faster. Any parting comments, Jessica?
No, just thank you so much for having us today. And if anybody wants to talk to us about, like, in general, how to build relationships with consumers, or the digital demo program that we offer, where we can literally drive thousands of people into stores in a matter of weeks and help you drive that discovery, trial, and insights. Love to chat with you. My email is on the bottom of the slide. And once again, thanks so much, and have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. If we don't talk to you before then, have a good holiday.
Yeah, right.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.